Hi everyone. So in a recent video, I had asked you guys if you would like me to do a top 10 Hoya wishlist video for you guys, and you resoundingly replied yes. So that is what we're going to be doing today. Now, I do want to let you know, I did mention in my last video that I did acquire a few more plants from Texas Plant Connection in their last live sale they did before they retired. I have not shown you guys what those plants are yet, but two of them were on my Hoya wish list. So I figured today would be an excellent time to show you. So after we go through the now current wish list with those removed, the top 10, I will show you the ones I bought. I also won a really cool giveaway in that live, which I will show to you as well. But let's just go ahead and jump right into the wish list. This is not really necessarily going to be in any particular order, although there are two plants on this list that were also featured in my overall 2025 plant wish list back in January. So how about we just revisit those two first, because I have not acquired either of them. And spoiler alert, you guys, a large part of the reason I haven't acquired the 10 that we're going to be looking at right now is because they are super pricey for the most part. So, where possible, I will try to find average current pricing for like a two-leaf situation and flash it up on screen for you for all of these, but they're not cheap. They're not cheap, so I'm not going to be acquiring any of these anytime soon unless I just happen to find one on a really good deal, or if somebody gifts one to me, or maybe if I do some kind of trade with somebody or something like that. But man, there are some stunners on this list. So let's start with one of my absolute favorite on this list. If you guys see me looking down, I do have them on my phone down here because I just find that if I look at a picture of them while I'm describing, I'm less likely to forget to tell you something that I really want to tell you about the plant. All right, up first, we have one of two Hoya carnosa compacta varieties that are on the top of my Hoya wish list. And the first one is hands down my favorite of the two. This came on my radar approximately a year ago. It was Sean from Only Plants posted, like reposted somebody else's post of one of these, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's stunning. And back in January, when I first told you guys about this plant, I mentioned I could only find one occurrence of like one person posting pictures of this. Thankfully, now I'm seeing more people post. So I think it's starting to get shared more, produced more, but it's going to be hard to find because compactas are notoriously slow growers, and mutated versions like this beautiful compacta Oblak or Oblak, I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, but I'll have the name up on screen for you. I know this is going to be an even slower grower. It's just the nature of the game. Variegated versions of plants tend to be slower growers than their green counterparts, and the more complicated the variegation, it seems to be the slower they grow. So this is basically what looks like the outer variegated version of a Hoya carnosa compacta, which I own the outer variegated version, but with silver splashing in the green part, which I believe there is a silver splashy version, like just green with silver splashy version of the Hoya carnosa compacta. I want to say it's called the Jody's Silver. I could be wrong about that. If I am, I'll correct myself up on screen for you. This looks like kind of a hybrid of the two. Now, this could actually be a hybrid of the two, but I believe the person that I first found posting this plant stated that it was a mutation that happened off of a regular outer variegated Carnosa compacta. So I think this is just a mutation that has now been separated. I will say though, I am, like I said, seeing more people posting these, but I'm still just seeing one vine situations. I am now seeing at least some longer vines that were like at least this long versus last year. All I was seeing was little short stubby vines like this. But once again, this is a slow growing plant. It's going to take a while for these to become easy to find, readily available, and more mature specimens. Now, because they are super slow growing, I really would prefer when I do one day acquire one of these to have one that is at least 3 vines in a pot. And I would like them to be fairly well established. Like, I'd like vines at least this long. That would be my personal preference. Right now, I don't know that that even exists. And if it does, it's going to be astronomically expensive. So it's going to be a while before I acquire this plant, but I just think it's absolutely stunning. The pictures I've seen too, where they're sun stressing, it tends to be a little bit more pink on the white edges than on my regular outer variegated Carnosa compacta. I tend to get a bit more of a reddish tone. Sometimes it does take on a little bit of a pink tone, but more often than not, it's leaning more towards red. So that's another thing that I really like about this particular variety. Now, since we're already talking about Hoya carnosa compactas, let's just go ahead. Actually, no, I said I wanted to revisit the ones that were in the January wish list video first. So let's look at the other one of those. Now, interestingly enough, this plant is a plant that also came onto my radar in a Texas Plant Connection Live approximately 11 months ago. And I really wanted to get it, but it was $200 and that was not in my budget at the time. I am probably going to mispronounce this, but this is a Hoya pachyclada intervariegated is how I think it is pronounced. But you guys, this is a beautiful plant. This is leaning more towards a larger leafed Hoya, and I typically prefer smaller leafed Hoyas. They're not insanely large leaves, but they're like getting on up there and kind of like, I don't want anything bigger than that. But one of the things that I really like about this plant, besides the beautiful intervariegation on the leaves, is that it is a slightly larger leafed Hoya that grows very tightly together. So the Hoya carnosa compactas are another good example of that. Like the nodes, the space between the nodes, between the leaves is really short, and it's even less noticeable on a Hoya carnosa compacta because the leaves are crinkled and they kind of crinkle in and hide the vine, if you will. So I actually think on this plant, the nodes are even tighter spaced together because we don't have that crinkling to kind of hide anything, but you really can't see a lot of the vine on most of these that I find pictures of online. And that goes for all the varieties. There's a solid green variety. I'm pretty sure there's an outer variegated variety as well. But that's one of the things that really attracted me to it. And it makes it look really bushy. And the leaves also tend to kind of be more radial in the way that it grows. So it gives it a little bit of a different look. Now, I was worried at first about how this was going to look if it was left trailing, but I did find some example photos of, I believe, some all green ones online that were trailing that didn't look that bad. So I was kind of like on the fence when I first saw it in Texas Plant Connections Live, but then the more I looked into it and the more examples I found, the more I was like, okay, I really like the look of this. It's going on my wish list. Okay, so next up, let's now go look at the other Hoya carnosa compacta that is on my wish list in the top 10. There are more than 10 Hoya on my wish list, you guys, but I don't want to keep you here all day. So this is the inner variegated version of the Hoya carnosa compacta. So once again, I have the regular outer variegated version of this. This is known as the Mauna Loa. And this is an absolutely stunning plant. This has been on my radar pretty much since I got into plants. It was really hard to find back then. They were very pricey. They're still pretty pricey. I can't recall exactly how much they were at Peta's Planters at PlantCon because they had a bunch of little like 3-inch pots of them, but they were pretty much mostly just single vines and they were pretty short. And so once again, because Carnosa compactas are so slow to grow, I really want a more mature, bushier specimen if I can get one. I know that Peta's Planters has had some 4-inch pots of these in recent live sales they've done. And they weren't like crazy long, but I feel like they were at least 3 or 4 vines in a pot, but they were pretty like short vines. But even that's better than kind of the 3-inch ones that I was seeing at PlantCon. So that's the kind of thing where like that would be my preference, is to get more like what they were offering for the 4-inch ones. But I believe those were up near like $100, a little over $100 or something like that. So once again, these are pretty much all out of my price range right now. But this goes back to the fact that they are really slow. A lot of these are really slow to grow. And so it's hard to produce enough to get enough in the market to deal with the demand to then cause the price to be lowered. That is the sole reason that a lot of these are still really pricey, you guys, is just they're hard to find, they're slow to grow, and usually they're hard to find because they're slow to grow. So it's not like a situation where these are being like mass tissue cultured, like a lot of the philodendrons that we're seeing now, and they can just flood the market with them and that drives the price down. So this is just going to be one of those situations where it's just going to take time. I'm going to have patience, or I'm just going to have to get lucky in a sale and get one for cheap, like at an auction on Palm Street, or get one gifted to me, like I said, or trade one or whatever. But I would absolutely love to own one of these one day. And yes, if you're thinking the Carnosa compactus are like my next Hoya polyneura kick where I'm going to try to collect them all, I've been trying to collect them all for a while, you guys. These have been on my wish list and my radar, except for that Oblak one, for a while. So this is not anything new. They were just so pricey. And I mean, even my outer variegated one, when I got it, I think I paid like 55 or 65 for it, but it was pretty established, 6-inch pot, very full. But even the longest vine was only like this long. So, and that was for me at the time was a pretty like, hey, that's a lot of money to spend on a plant situation. And these are even more expensive for a smaller situation. But one day I will own one. Okay, up next, I was not even looking for Hoyas, I don't think. I don't even know what I was looking for. I was doing research for a video earlier this year. I was scrolling through Instagram, looking at plants. I was not looking specifically for Hoyas, I'm pretty sure, but this Hoya just popped up as I was scrolling. I just saw it and I stopped because it reminded me of another plant. I was like, that's not what that plant is though. And then I was looking closer. I was like, is that a Hoya? Is that a Hoya that looks like it's not a Hoya? Like, what is happening here? And it was at that point in time that I added this to my Hoya wish list. So this is what is known as a Hoya species para emerald frost. You guys, does this or does this not remind you of a Ficus elastica teneke? Right? That's what caught my eye about this plant. These leaves look very much like a Hoya, not a Hoya, a Ficus elastica teneke's leaves with that white around the edge, the green in the middle. It is a slightly like pointier shaped leaf than a Ficus elastica teneke, but it still is kind of a similar ovalish type shape. I mean, comment down below and let me know if you agree, but that's what caught my eye about this Hoya. Now, this is a slightly larger leafed Hoya once again, but I was just so caught off guard by how much it looked like my Teneke. And so that is really how I ended up putting it on my wish list. And once again, all the pictures I've seen of these, I feel like it's similar to the Hoya Pocky that we were looking at earlier, that the leaves tend to grow a little bit more closely together than, for example, on like a regular Hoya carnosa of any variety, whether that be the Crimson Princess, the Crimson Queen, my Hoya Wilbur Graves. It just seems to be a little bit more tightly spaced. And so because of that, I kind of like it even better, even though it is kind of a larger leafed Hoya. But I was just so taken aback by it. And I just think it's an absolutely stunning plant. So I immediately added it to my wish list. So up next, though, we have another plant that this is a weird one for me. So I kept going back and forth on whether I was going to add this to my wish list or not. And I kept actually bidding on some of these in Texas Plant Connection's recent lives. And I just kept getting outbid. And I kept questioning if I was going to put it on my wish list. I'm like, I'm bidding on it in these lives. I should probably put it on my wish list. But my thing with this plant is I'm being a little bit picky about the kind I want. And by kind, I don't even mean like a different variety. I mean, you guys know how it is. Like variegated plants, for example, you could own the same variegated plant I own, and mine could look more variegated than yours, or vice versa. So it just depends. Some versions do different things than others, even though it's the exact same plant. So this is my issue with this one, but I did end up putting it on my wish list. This is a Hoya carnosa Argentea Princess. Now, what a lot of people like about this plant is the, I'm going to call it cloudy or foggy look to it. So this is an intervariegated plant. It does have kind of a creamy yellowish color in the middle of the leaves and green around the edges. But hopefully you guys can tell there is then kind of a silverish covering over the leaf that makes the color look really muted and kind of like it's under a foggy glass or something like that. And I'm kind of not a huge fan of it. But what I am a fan of are when I find versions like this that I saw at Peta's Planters, at PlantCon, and also Texas Plant Connection. They had some that looked like this in their live sales. Those are the ones that I was bidding on. On this particular one, you can see that some of the green is actually popping through that cloudiness. And I think that makes this so stunning when that bright green peeks through. So ideally, at some point when I'm able to afford a decent size one of these, I want to get one that hopefully has a lot of green popping through like that. And I think that actually is considered maybe less desirable because I think a lot of people really want that totally like foggy coloring to these plants, but I don't. I want one that has a little bit more of the green popping through. So, for that reason, I definitely want to get a more mature one of these because I want to find one that has a lot of the green popping through versus getting like a 2-leaf cutting situation like this and then every leaf it puts out thereafter doesn't have any green popping through. I kind of want to try to find one that is kind of the norm on the plant because you just think it's so beautiful. And don't get me wrong, the foggy looking one when it's totally foggy is still pretty looking, but it's just not as like, oh my gosh to me as when that bright green is popping through. But definitely is a pricey plant. I think the 2-leaf situation I'm showing you from Peta's Planters was $98. So, and I forget how much the mama plants that Texas Plant Connection sold in the live was, but like hundreds of dollars. So once again, not going to be getting it anytime soon, but would love to have one someday. Okay, let's see. Up next, so this is another, I actually want to make a clarification on this plant because I said possibly incorrectly at PlantCon that this plant was on my, or I guess I should say a plant I showed at PlantCon. I said it was on my wish list. I now think it might be a completely different plant. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me figure it out. So it was from, I think, D&M Secret Gardens. I will flash what I showed you from PlantCon up on screen. This was a $1,200 plant. It was labeled as a Hoya carnosa Madara snow drift. The one that is actually on my wish list is a Hoya carnosa Madara snow angel. Now, I tried to do a little bit of Googling research to figure out if these are in fact two completely different plants or if it's a name that's being used interchangeably. And honestly, I couldn't figure it out. Every time I would search for snow drift, everything that would pop up would be labeled snow angel. So I'm not sure. So if anybody knows for sure if they're actually two different things, comment down below and let us know, and maybe include a link if you can to some place proving it, because that would be really helpful. But I'm just going on a hunch that they're different because here's what made me put this on my wish list. So this is actually labeled as a snow angel. And as you can see, it is a very, what I would like to call a freckled type Hoya. So beautiful white leaves with green, speckly, freckly variegation on them. Now, the one that I saw at PlantCon that was labeled Snow Drift was less freckled and more just green in the middle of the leaves. Still a beautiful Hoya, don't get me wrong, but that's why I'm questioning if it isn't a completely different variety. So once again, hopefully somebody can let us know in the comments down below. But the more speckledy one is the one that I originally put on my wish list that was classified or labeled on multiple people's sites, by the way, you guys, as a snow angel. So that's what I'm going to go with. But just a stunning plant. And I have no Hoyas that look even remotely anything like this. Once again, still pricey, even though it's not the drift one. I don't know if it's $1,200. Like I said, I'll try to put up on screen kind of what the average pricing I'm seeing for them are. But it is just so gorgeous. And I would just 100% love to have one someday. I just, oh my gosh, it is just so beautiful. I'm looking at it. I have it up on my computer screen right now. It is gorgeous, you guys. It is gorgeous. Just all these like very white leafed Hoyas. I really like them a lot. And I don't have anything that is super white leafed other than my outer variegated Hoya carnosa compacta sometimes gets all white leaves, but they die off like relatively quickly. So I really like these ones that are white with green on them because that should help those leaves last longer. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. Up next, we have a Hoya Mathilde variegated. Now, I actually ended up putting this on my wish list while I was at PlantCon. And it was kind of an interesting situation. So day one of PlantCon, one of the very first places I went was Peta's Planters Hoya booth. And I walked in there, and before I even started filming, because they were talking to me, I was just looking around and I saw a Hoya Mathilde variegated. It was just a tiny baby, and I didn't even get to get any footage of it for you guys because this girl swooped in there shortly after I walked in and she grabbed that thing and bought it right up. And I wish I could have gotten a picture of it because it looked a bit different from this one that I'm going to show you right now, which they put out the second day at Peta's Planners. But I asked her about it and she mentioned the one from the day before. And I was like, yeah, I was here when that girl bought it. She kind of implied that they were the exact same type, but I'm just going to tell you right now, the one the first day I felt like was lighter colored in the middle, more of a cream, almost white in the middle, and less splashy, less freckly. So hopefully, as you can see on this one, this is intervariegated, so it's lighter in the middle, darker green around the edge, but this is a splashy variety. You can see the green speckles in the middle, which I think is absolutely gorgeous as well. But the one the previous day, I just don't remember it having that much like freckly look to it. Still a stunning plant, was a lot smaller than this one. This one was $310, definitely outside of my price range, but a stunning plant, which is why I had to put it on my wish list. But the other really cool thing I noticed on the one from the first day was that the outer edge where it was getting sunstressed was so vibrantly red. It was stunning, you guys. It was like a red, white, and green looking Hoya. It was so beautiful. I would, though, love to have another Hoya Mathilde. Love how all of them look. And this is the one that made the top 10 of the wish list. Okay, up next, we have another Hoya that got added to my wish list at PlantCon. Man, I remember telling you guys like how beautiful it looked in the video. And then when I got home and I was editing the video, I was just like, oh my God, like I kind of regretted not buying it, although I think it was also out of my price range. But it is the Hoya carrii. I don't know if it's actually pronounced carrii, you guys, because as you'll see on screen, it's not spelled like, when I say Hoya carrii, most of you are probably thinking of the heart-shaped leaf carrii, which is spelled Kerrii. I may have put one extra R in there. This is Carrii. Also may have put one extra R in there. I think it's still pronounced carrii, unless it's carrii. I don't know, you guys, but I just wanted to address that so you didn't be like, weren't thinking like, that's not a carrii. So it's either carrii or carrii. NS13064. Yes, it is one of those Hoyas with a lot of numbers and letters. But this is the one that I saw at Vic and Vine's booth at PlantCon, and I was like, it is so stunningly dark. And it was one of the few dark plants that actually looked dark in the footage that I shot for you guys at PlantCon, because I'm telling you right now, most of the other ones where I was like, it's so dark, you guys, it did not look even remotely as dark on camera as it did in person. You have no idea. But this one actually read pretty well. It was still a little bit lighter, but it was just so beautiful. And when I was editing the video, I started looking at more mature versions of this one because I was worried the leaves were going to get really big. They were going to get like really veiny or something, and I wasn't going to like it. Oh no. All the more mature versions I saw, I really like. Now, it is one of those that gets borderline large leaves, like borderline to the level that is not my preferred largeness, but it's just borderline. And it's just so stunningly dark that I was like, I just want it so bad. I really do. And it is just all green. I mean, there's nothing variegated about this, like, but there is just something about a beautifully green, all green plant, you guys. Especially for me, it's like when it's all green and it has dark leaves. Like let's see, plants that come to mind. My philodendron micans, super dark velvety green leaves. My philodendron El Choco red, super dark velvety green leaves. I like a good dark green leaf plant. Not the biggest fan of all green, lighter green leafed plants for the most part, but just dark, pure green leaves, like it does it for me. And I don't own a dark, pure green leafed Hoya. All the dark green leafed Hoyas that I own have some sort of silver splashiness on them. So even my Hoya polyneura, my all green one, has a little bit of silvery specks here and there. So I think that is why this one just also stood out as so different and something I wanted to put on my wish list. So it is definitely on there now. I I think this is probably a relatively fast growing one, just I have a hunch. So I probably would be okay getting a slightly smaller one of this, but once again, I do believe it was priced a little bit, maybe it was like, I want to say maybe it was $65, but considering what I had already spent, I did not need to be spending 65 more dollars. So I might wait for this one to come down in price a bit, but once again, if I do see it in a live sale and I can get it, bid on it and get it at a good price at auction or something like that, then that might be another situation. But I just really, I don't know, man. this might be, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that if I were going to acquire any of the Hoyas on this list, like at the top 10 of this list, the first one I am probably most likely to get, not just because I think it might be the most affordable. Actually, there's one other one on here that might be more affordable, is probably this one, honestly. I'm not saying it's like my favorite out of the 10, but I don't know. I just have a hunch. All right, moving on, we have two more. Let's go with the one that I think is actually probably the most affordable on this list, and that is the Hoya uniflora. This is a super small leafed Hoya. Very kind of, I think the leaves are a little bit smaller than the Mathilde, like a mature Mathilde leaf, maybe around the same size. But once again, you guys, this is an all green variety of Hoya. And I know there are other varieties of this that have like silver and stuff, but I was just really attracted to the all green variety of this because it does have darker green foliage, not as dark as the last plant we looked at, but still dark. It does have these cute little oval shaped leaves, but what I really like about these is there's just this weird fold in the middle of the leaf that just looks like you started to fold the leaf in half and you stopped. And I don't know why, but I like it. It once again is just a more unique looking Hoya. And I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, it just looks similar to like a Hoya Mathilde, like an all green Hoya Mathilde. Well, first of all, I don't have an all green Hoya Mathilde, but I feel like that little crease in the middle just makes it more unique. And I just really am trying also to be a little bit mindful of not getting a ton of Hoyas that look completely identical because at the end of the day, what's the point? And this is kind of how I feel with a lot of the Hoya lacunosas. A lot of the silverish variety Hoya lacunosas all start to look the same to me. They also look somewhat similar, although the leaves are a little bit more elongated than most cronianas. They do have a sort of similar look to silver cronianas, and I have a silver croniana. Technically, I have two silver cronianas because now I have a silver black, but that silver black is actually quite a bit different looking than my super silver when you put them side by side. But I am trying to be mindful not to get a bunch of plants, and this goes with plants in general, even my anthurium, like I'm trying not to get a bunch that just look really, really similar because then I'm like, what's the point? It's just taking up space. They look almost identical. Why not just keep one of those and then get something else that looks different? So that's kind of just so you guys have an idea of where my brain's at with some of the plants that I picked to put on my wish list versus ones I don't. That kind of is how it goes. But this uniflora is super cute and it is more affordable, but I would like to get a slightly more established one. And I did see some that were just a few vines with a few leaves in a pot that were like, it was ranging in like the $35 range, which to me is a little bit high still, because if I wanted to get one that was like in a 4-inch pot with more vines and more trailing, I'm going to be getting into probably like the $100 range. So it is still a pricier one, but it is probably honestly the most affordable currently out of all the ones on this list. All right, that brings us to the last one before I show you the new plants that I got from Texas Plant Connection. And this one might shock some of you, but this is another situation where when I was at PlantCon, I kept seeing a lot of Hoyas that I really liked. And some of them were splashy silver ones that I was like, man, that's really cool. What kind of Hoya is that? I wasn't going to buy any of the ones that were splashy silver because they just reminded me a little bit too much of my Hoya Wilbur Graves Russia. And like I just said, I don't want to get a lot of similar looking Hoyas. Now knowing what I know, they're going to look a little bit different because they're just larger leaf than that. But every time I saw a plant, I was like, oh, that's cute. And I would look at it, like 9 times out of 10, it was a Hoya crassipetiolata. No, I spelled this wrong. Hold on, you guys. I typed it wrong. Let me go find the correct spelling so I can hopefully pronounce it right for you. Okay, you guys, it is a Hoya crassipetiolata, I think is how it is pronounced. And this is the inner variegated version. Now, once again, I saw a lot of different varieties of this at PlantCon. And every time I would look, what is that? It was a crassipetiolata. Now, on the last day of PlantCon, so let me put it this way, some of the booths, they just kind of have everything out the whole time and they just aren't really replenishing things as they're sold between days. PETA's planters replenished and brought out some things on day 2 that weren't even there on day 1. So I actually saw this plant right before I was getting ready to leave and I was like, oh my gosh, That is like gorgeous. What is that? Well, guess what it was? Because every time I did that at PlantCon, no matter whose booth it was, that's what it ended up being. So this one that you're seeing from them is just a little baby one. Honestly, the leaves are relatively small. This was really pricey, $350 for this little baby one. But you guys, look how stunning the variegation is on this plant. So technically, this is considered an variegated, I think. I don't even know if they call it intervariegated. Now that I think about it, they might just call it variegated because it's not fully intervariegated, because hopefully you can see like some of the chunks take up almost one full side of the leaf, giving you kind of a half moon situation. But it's just so beautiful with that light green and then the slightly medium shade of green and then the darker green. And then hopefully you guys can see around the leaf margin, the edge of the leaf is dark green like all the way around. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful. Now it gets much larger leaf than this. I have some other pictures, hopefully I will show to you. But I don't know, you guys. Like I said, I feel like I'm starting to find the large leaf Hoyas that are right for me, that are more my style. And I just really like how this one looks. Now, once again, I'm not sure how it would do as a solely trailing plant. If anybody has one and you let it trail, comment down below and let us know. But I have found some slightly longer ones on Instagram and various places where I still like how it looks when it's trailing. I just get worried with the really, really big leaf ones, you guys, that if I let it trail, it's going to be too heavy for it and it's going to cause problems, honestly. But this is just so beautiful. And when I saw how big the leaves get, I kind of debated back and forth on whether I was actually going to put it on my wish list or not. But the variegation is what got me, you guys. It's just so stunning. It's so beautiful. I was also worried that it was going to have that overly veiny look to it that I don't like, but it doesn't really. It's like you can see the ridges of the veins, but it's just the patterning of it just gives it kind of this ripply look to it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is so light in the light green areas of the leaf that it's just it doesn't present the same way as like on a dark green leaf, and it makes it, I guess, less noticeable or something. I don't know how to explain it, but I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. I can't afford it, but I think it's gorgeous, and this might be the I will say this would probably be, if I ever get one one day, if the price ever drops enough for me to get one or I get one via other means, this will probably be my second largest leaf Hoya that I will own. Remember, my current largest leaf one I own is the latifolia. It's the outer variegated round leaf variety one, and that thing is just growing like mad. But oh my god, this is just so stunning. Like if I actually had to trade that latifolia for one of these, I would probably make that trade. I really honestly would probably make that trade. Some of you are probably screaming, no, Drea, don't do it. But I would. This is just so gorgeous. Like I keep staring at it on my phone. It is so gorgeous, you guys. All right. Those are my top 10 Hoyas on my wish list currently. But let me show you what I got from Texas Plant Connection, because two of these three plants were wish list plants. Now, the first one was not a wish list plant, but I'm going to show it to you anyway real quick and explain to you why I got it. So this is a Hoya Cumingiana outer variegated plant. I do have one of these from Aroid Asia. Oh, look, you guys, I just noticed it's finally, I haven't even had it that long. It's putting out 2 sets of new leaves already. So it is doing fabulously. I think I've had these, man, I am so losing track of time. A week, maybe? I'll put it up on screen for you. But yeah, so this one is doing great. But the Hoya Cumingianas, I have learned from what I saw at PlantCon and talking to people, they tend to take a little bit longer to vine out, meaning that one vine takes longer to turn into multi-vines than on a lot of other Hoyas. And so since the one I got from Aroid Asia is just one vine, and I was able to get this relatively cheap, I think it was like 20 something, maybe 17. I'll put it up on screen for you. I was like, why not? I'm just going to get one, and that way I can combine them together and at least have 2 in a little 2-inch pot. Now, I am going to wait to do that because I do want this one to develop some more roots, but hopefully you can see there are nice roots spreading around in this pot. So super excited to have this to add, and these leaves are actually much larger than, I mean, look, it's like bigger than my thumb than on my other one. My other one's leaves are much smaller, so it's still a little bit more of a baby. But moving on to the two wish list plants. This next one, unfortunately, in transit, one of the tips of one of the leaves got snapped off. This is just an itty bitty baby. This was kind of an impulse buy, but oh well. This is what is known as a Hoya Lori Lynn. Now, you guys, we are about to need some help here. I need some help here from you guys. Once again, this is one of those things I was trying to Google earlier to find out if this is actually a outer variegated version of a Hoya Wishlist, or if this is an outer variegated version of a Hoya Kintiana. I'm not sure, you guys. It's all over the place online. It's all over the place. Some people say it's a outer variegated version of a Wishlist. Some people say it's an outer variegated version of a Kintiana. I honestly don't know. So if anybody knows definitively, comment down below. And once again, if you can find a link to share so we know definitively, because otherwise people will keep arguing or debating. Arguing is the wrong word. Debating. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, this is just a little 2-leaf situation, but let me show you what a more mature one looks like. And they sun stress very hot pinkish, if you will. So I'm just going to say, looking at some of these more mature ones, I'm actually leaning more towards this being a Kintiana than a Wishlist, just based on what I know from my own Wishlist, but they are very similar looking plants, Kintiana and Wishlist, except that my Wishlist is weird, you guys. Like, I actually need to do some research. I'm starting to question if my Wishlist has not mutated, actually. I think I'll do some research and maybe do a separate video specifically on that, because I just have a hunch something's going on there. We'll save that for a future video. But I think this is absolutely stunning. I absolutely love my Wishlist. I love longer leafed Hoyas like this. My Wishlist is the only Hoya I have that's has this kind of leaf shape. And I just thought it looked so beautiful that I decided to buy one. It is just a tiny baby though, and I have it on good authority that they're super slow growers, which my Wishlist has been. So, except this year it actually started to really take off more. So it's probably going to be a while before this does much of anything. Now, you're not going to be able to see the roots when I hold it up. There's one, I can see the tip of 2 roots, barely. Maybe you guys can see them. You see that right there? And there's a little tip there and a little tip there. So not super rooted, so I'm just going to let it be for a while in this pot. But once again, it's kind of an impulse buy, but this was on my wish list. So there you have it. I probably should have gotten a bigger one knowing that it's slow growing, but also it was really good pricing. So it is what it is. That's what happened. All right, so the next plant, the last plant, and then I'll show you the cool giveaway I won. Probably not going to be a surprise to anybody. I had to complete my Hoya Polyneura collection. Telling you guys, I'm nuts. So I got the outer variegated version of the Hoya Polyneura. So I do now have the outer variegated version, the inner variegated version, the silver version, and the jasminca version. And look how beautiful this particular leaf here is. And it is starting to push new leaves. Ooh, got too close. New leaves up there in between those leaves. So it is doing fabulously. Now, not a ton of roots. I did recently water this too, so hopefully that's not going to make it too hard for you guys to see. But we do have roots spreading around in the pot there. It is doing great. And honestly, you guys, my jasminca is doing well too. I have watered it for I think the 3rd time now, and it's still doing good. The new growth point on it that had started to push out before it was shipped to me is now looking like it's actually going to put out 2 leaves. So I'm feeling pretty good, knock on wood, that it's going to make it. I'm just convinced now, you guys, the first one I got, I think it hit something that had just already started to go wrong before it was shipped to me, honestly. I really think that's the case. So, because every other version of a Polyneura I've got has done fine. The inner variegated one I got from PlantCon is doing fine. So I really think that was the situation, but super happy to have this one. You guys, I've been contemplating. So I've been talking about for probably at least a year now that I want to create a planty wall in my bathroom, which is right next to a east-facing window that is a frosted glass window. It's like kind of ideal lighting for a lot of plants. And I am leaning more and more towards wanting to make it a Hoya wall now. And I'm actually thinking about putting all of my Hoya polyneura on that wall, kind of strategically arranged, and then putting some smaller leafed Hoyas in between. I just have this idea in my head. Now, a lot of them aren't of size yet to where it's going to look good, but I think I'm going to like draft it up and kind of sketch it out so you guys have an idea of like where I'm kind of going with it. Yeah, I just think that's what I wanna do, but it's gonna be a while before I can really do it because I really need to just let these get, like, more mature and everything first, but I just had this idea the other day, so we'll see what happens. But last thing I wanna show you guys is the giveaway that I won. Now, I also wanna tell you guys that I will probably never win another Palm Street live giveaway ever again because I have only ever won 3 giveaways on a Palm Street live, and all 3 giveaways were in a Texas Plant Connection live. The very first giveaway I ever won was in the second live I ever attended of theirs. And then I won, let's see, so I won, I think that was just a like 25% off of a plant you purchased in that live. I then won a Epiprimnum pinnatum marble in one of their lives. And then in their very last live, I won this absolutely stunning Aaron Apsley print. You guys, look how beautiful this is. So if you are not familiar with Aaron Apsley, I did feature his booth in my IAS video last year. He does amazing artwork. These are all watercolor. The original pieces that he does are watercolor. These are prints that he has done of his watercolors, and it is absolutely stunning. This is a 12 by 16 one. I have always wanted one of his prints, so super excited to have won this one. Now I just got to figure out a frame for it and where the heck I'm gonna hang it. I don't know. I haven't decided. I've got plenty of places that I can hang it, but I don't know where yet. But it is just so beautiful. So happy to have won this. All right, you guys. Well, that is all that I have for you today. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha.